There exists a particular form of mental fatigue that lacks a formal medical label. Yet, it is an experience shared by millions of people every single night. It occurs when you are resting in bed at 2 in the morning. Your physical body feels utterly spent, but your mind is racing at 100 miles per hour. Just as you are on the verge of drifting off, a random conversation from earlier in the day suddenly flashes back into your consciousness. You begin to play it back repeatedly. You scrutinize every syllable and every inflection. And then you start criticizing your own performance. You tell yourself you should have used a different phrase. Before you even realize what is happening, you have already simulated a dozen different practice scenarios for events that will likely never take place in reality. The most painful aspect is that you are fully aware that you are overanalyzing. You recognize that it is illogical, but you simply cannot find the off switch. It feels as if your brain has 50 separate browser tabs open simultaneously, and every one of them is screaming at maximum volume. People observe you and offer the typical cliches, telling you to just stop thinking or to try and relax. However, the reality is that possessing a mind that refuses to shut down is both a sign of high intelligence and a rather harsh psychological burden. Those who overthink are frequently among the most brilliant, sensitive, and emotionally perceptive individuals. But if this truly is an intellectual advantage, why does it leave you feeling so completely hollowed out? The boundary between having sharp intuition and falling into self-sabotage is incredibly narrow. Today, we are going to analyze exactly what is occurring inside the mind of an overthinker, and how you can regain control of your mental steering wheel. Welcome back. I'm Nori. Let's dive in. To fix any issue, you must first identify it correctly. In the field of psychology, this isn't just called overthinking. There is a specific clinical term for this behavior: maladaptive rumination. This happens when your consciousness becomes trapped, endlessly cycling through the same negative thought loops, particularly when facing uncertainty, past mistakes you cannot alter, or intricate social dynamics. Many people, including those close to you, might dismiss your experience by saying you are too sensitive or that you are making a big deal out of nothing, implying that is why you worry. However, scientific evidence contradicts those superficial opinions. Studies conducted at Yale University and the University of Michigan have repeatedly demonstrated the opposite. You do not engage in rumination because you are fragile. In most instances, you do it because your brain possesses an incredibly powerful capacity for recognizing patterns. Your nervous system functions like a sophisticated military radar. It is constantly scanning the horizon, processing data, and hunting for hidden meanings beneath the surface of every interaction. Your issue has never been a lack of brain power. The problem is that this radar system never receives the all-clear signal that tells it to power down. From the perspective of neuroscience, the primary actor in this drama is the prefrontal cortex. You can think of it as a high-level CEO responsible for strategy and rational thought. In a standard brain, this CEO applies the brakes to dampen the panic signals coming from the amygdala. However, when you are caught in a cycle of overthinking, this executive becomes overwhelmed. It loses its grip on the situation. Rather than maintaining authority, it gets dragged away by constant internal noise. This noise is produced by a background system known as the default mode network, or DMN. This mix results in a mind that is essentially permanently online. You are perpetually auditing everything that has already occurred. while simultaneously scripting dialogues for interactions that have not yet taken place. Your brain is comparable to a high-performance Ferrari with a massive V8 engine. But your foot is pinned to the accelerator while the transmission is in neutral. The engine is screaming and the tires are smoking, wasting massive amounts of fuel. Yet, the vehicle does not move forward at all. Your exhaustion is the result of the extreme pressure created by that motor, constantly redlining. But here is the central question. Why would a clever brain choose to enter such a taxing state? What is both intriguing and somewhat tragic is this. Psychological research has discovered that this habit usually doesn't just surface out of nowhere during adulthood. For many overthinkers, this behavior was planted during their early childhood or adolescent years. Take a second to reflect on your past. Did you grow up in a household where the environment felt unstable? Where the moods of adults or guardians could turn on a dime without any warning? Or in a setting where minor errors resulted in extreme punishments or harsh disapproval? That child's growing brain adopts a very logical strategy for survival. Predict everything. If you could anticipate your parents' temper just by the rhythm of their footsteps, if you could catch every possible typo in your schoolwork to avoid a lecture, or if you could sense a look of disappointment before it even happened, then perhaps you could stay safe. When viewed through this lens, your tendency to overthink is not a character defect. It is an evolutionary adaptation. It is the product of a very smart, reactive nervous system, doing exactly what it was conditioned to do for years: scan for threats to keep you protected. Your brain does not have a grudge against you. It is just trying to look out for you, perhaps a bit too intensely. Now, we should pause to clarify a vital distinction regarding overthinking. Not all forms of excessive thought look the same or lead to the same outcomes. In the worlds of psychoanalysis and cognitive science, excessive thought is generally divided into two distinct categories. Identifying which one you are currently experiencing is the first step toward escaping the trap. The first category is reflective rumination, a thoughtful and productive process. This occurs when your mind looks inward to gain a better understanding of yourself. It helps to process difficult feelings and reshape your worldview. For instance, after a fight with a partner, you might sit down and wonder, why was my reaction so intense? What part of their comment hit an old nerve, triggering such a strong response? Or, how can I express myself more clearly next time to avoid misunderstanding? When utilized correctly, reflective rumination is actually a massive advantage. It is the foundation of high emotional intelligence and deep self-awareness. This healthy reflection also cultivates genuine compassion for oneself and others. Ultimately, it fosters invaluable personal development and growth. The second category is brooding rumination, a far more insidious form of overthinking. This is the true silent predator that gradually erodes your quality of life. Unlike reflective thought, which seeks a path forward, brooding is entirely stagnant. You become obsessed with the problem itself, suffocating in regret and questions that have no answers. You replay a conflict hundreds of times, not to gain insight, but simply to experience the anger again. Or perhaps to punish yourself for not having a better retort in the moment. This is where overthinking begins to demand payment for its relentless grip. It forces you to pay with the quality of your sleep, leaving you restless and drained. It forces you to pay with something known as analysis paralysis. You stand at a fork in the road, weighing every potential danger with agonizing detail, until you are completely frozen and unable to act, trapped by your own thoughts. It forces you to pay with social anxiety, a constant fear of interaction. because you are perpetually terrified of saying the wrong thing, being judged, or misinterpreted. But the most dangerous part of this trap is that you don't just stay in one category. Most of us drift back and forth between the two without even noticing the transition. A perfectly healthy moment of self-reflection can quietly slide down a slippery slope. It transforms into a spiral of brooding before you even realize you've crossed the boundary. It is so subtle that you don't recognize the shift from one state to another. Why does this occur, this unnoticed transition into negativity? It happens because when you are thinking intensely, it feels like you are being productive. Your brain is working at maximum capacity, with neurons firing constantly. In cognitive psychology, this is referred to as the illusion of mental progress. Your mind convinces you that it is tackling a difficult problem with great effort. But in reality, it is just running on a treadmill, expending massive energy. It's like sweating profusely, but not moving a single inch forward in the real world. Let me share a neurological fact that might surprise you. Do you know why you can't simply command yourself to stop thinking? Why does it feel so frustrating when someone suggests you just stop worrying or relax? It isn't because their advice is inherently wrong. It is because it is physically unrealistic. The truth is that your brain is being fueled by dopamine. We usually think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, but there is a detail many overlook. Your brain secretes small bursts of dopamine during the act of problem solving, even when those problems are entirely fabricated. Consequently, every time you simulate a scenario, every time you examine every facet of a potential risk, or every time you construct a brilliant argument to defeat your boss in a mental debate, your brain is rewarding itself. It provides tiny chemical hits for the mere act of thinking, regardless of whether that thought leads to a tangible result. As long as the wheels are turning, your brain feels a sense of satisfaction. This process turns overthinking into a cycle of addiction. Not unlike the habit of scrolling through social media. The more you analyze, the more you are compensated with these chemical rewards, and the more you feel compelled to keep going to maintain a false sense of security. This is why using pure willpower to stop thinking is, from a scientific standpoint, almost impossible. You cannot easily defeat a system that has such a powerful chemical incentive to keep the habit alive. So, how do we escape this mental confinement? Attempting to force an overthinker to stop thinking is like telling someone who is seasick to just stop feeling nauseated. It simply doesn't work. The world's leading therapists, when treating patients with chronic overthinking, do not waste energy trying to suppress the thoughts. The actual objective of treatment is to help you alter your relationship with those thoughts. To achieve this, I want you to begin using two fundamental methods based on acceptance and commitment therapy and somatic experiencing. The first technique is cognitive diffusion. Picture your anxious thoughts as a set of virtual reality goggles strapped tightly to your face. When you are wearing them, you truly believe the catastrophe shown inside is happening. You become fused with the thoughts, making them feel like your entire reality. Cognitive diffusion is the process of taking those goggles off. Holding them in your hands, you realize what you see is just a recording. It's not your actual reality, just a projection. In practice, this involves changing your internal dialogue. Instead of being consumed by a label like "I am a complete failure," take a step back to create some mental distance. Say, "I am having the thought that I am a failure." Can you feel the massive shift that happens? When you insert the phrase, "I am having the thought," you immediately detach yourself from that toxic mental stream. You strip away its total authority and power over you. You are no longer a person being swept away by a river. You have stepped onto the bank to watch the water pass by. This minor adjustment helps redirect blood flow and neural activity away from the amygdala, the hub of fear and emotional reaction, and back toward the prefrontal cortex, the center of reason and perspective. You are teaching your brain to understand this is just raw data being handled. It's not a definitive judgment on your character or worth. The second technique is to update the safety signals for your central nervous system. At its heart, overthinking occurs because your nervous system is still utilizing outdated survival software from your past. It assumes the world is inherently dangerous and full of threats. This is why logical arguments cannot convince it to calm down. You must use the language of the physical body to retrain it. When your mind starts to race, your pulse quickens, and you feel yourself being sucked into an infinite loop of worry. You must immediately break that cycle with physical sensory input. Pull your awareness out of the imaginary future and drop it back into the immediate present moment. You can utilize the popular 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method. Stop and identify 5 things you can see right now. Then, 4 things you can physically touch, like the grain of a desk or the fabric of your shirt. 3 distinct sounds you can hear, such as a distant car or a ticking clock. 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Or you can try something more blunt and intense, like splashing your face with freezing water, or lifting a heavy weight, feeling the strain in your muscles. Why is this so effective for breaking the thought loop? It works because the brain's default mode network cannot focus on 2 things at once. When you force it to prioritize strong physical data from the real world, it has to pause the imaginary dramas it was building. This is how you gently lead your mind out of a dark theater and back into the sunlight, into the light of the present. You are transmitting a clear biological signal to your nervous system. A signal that says, look around. The setting has changed. It is different now. There is no threat chasing us, no immediate danger. You are an adult now, capable and strong. You can defend yourself and handle challenges. And it is safe to rest, safe to relax. This message reassures your nervous system, allowing it to finally calm down and let go of the past. When you assemble all these psychological components, there is a much larger message here than just a few self-help tips. Overthinking is not a character flaw. It is not an embarrassing condition. It is not evidence that you are fragile, broken, or losing your mind. At its core, it is proof of a mind with incredibly high processing power, a mind that had to learn how to stay hypervigilant. This hypervigilance developed in a world that once felt unsafe. It is a testament to how hard you have struggled to survive. Your true mission in life is not to totally erase these thoughts or to kill off your natural sensitivity and intelligence. The real goal is to learn how to be a kind and patient mentor for your own brain. You need to show that worried mind that the era of constant danger has passed. Show it that tranquility is something you deserve without needing to stay on high alert. Perhaps the most human element of this entire struggle is that every one of us carries mental habits and emotional wounds. These are shaped by circumstances we did not choose. We didn't choose to be hurt, and we didn't choose to feel this level of anxiety. Gaining an understanding of how your brain functions isn't a magic trick that fixes everything instantly, but it does dismantle the absolute control those dark thoughts seem to have over your life. Once you can identify the problem, it can no longer be your ruler. Sometimes, simply reaching that level of self-understanding is the most potent starting point for genuine recovery. A mind that never stops thinking is not a broken machine you are forced to fix. It is simply a brilliant engine that has forgotten how to safely and quietly power down. You are absolutely allowed to stop fighting the current and let those relentless thoughts drift past. Choosing to put down your mental armor does not mean you will be defeated by life. What is one gentle truth you could whisper to your brain the next time it begins spiraling? If this resonated with you today, leave that sentence in the comments so others feel less alone. May your restless thoughts finally find a quiet and safe place to rest tonight.